Welcome to the Insight podcast. Joining me on the show today is Anne-Sophie Fluri. Anne-Sophie is a neuroscientist who wants to help you build mental resilience. I talked to her about her take on resilience, aspects of our lives we can look at to help improve resilience, letting go of relationships that no longer align with our goals, visualization as a tool to improve resilience, her morning routine as a neuroscientist, journaling, and much more. Now, before we start, I have a quick favor to ask. If you haven't already, please hit the follow button wherever you're tuning into this episode. And then if you've been listening to the show for a while, I'd really appreciate it if you left a rating of the show too. This will help more listeners discover the podcast and the insights from all of my amazing guests. Thank you. Right, now for my conversation with Anne-Sophie Fluri. Enjoy. How's life over in Switzerland then?
Hi, Switzerland is beautiful. I've had such a lucky time with the weather here. It's been like the sun's been shining since basically December. So yeah.
Nice. And what are you doing over there? You're working, taking a bit of a break, holiday? What's going on?
So I at the moment I just came back from 6 weeks in Thailand where I was working and then took a little bit of a break. Visited my brother. He lives in Thailand. And I've been using Switzerland as kind of a base for the past year. I've been working remote, trying to live and travel to different places and just work from some beautiful little cafes around the world. And yeah, I'm from Switzerland originally, so it's nice to be home every once in a while.
Yeah. So what does that look like? What does working remotely for you as a neuroscientist look like?
Oh, it's so interesting because I could never have imagined working like this as a neuroscientist as well. Most of my work is remote. I have some in-person appearances, talks, workshops, and I travel wherever I need to go for those. But for the most part, I'm just, wake up in the morning, go to the gym, grab a coffee, sit somewhere beautiful, and work from my computer. I've been a chief science officer for a sleep app up until recently, and starting my position now as a chief science officer of a mental fitness app. And it's like a mental health game, basically. So yeah, it's just a lot of research, a lot of jumping on calls, brainstorming, ideating, managing teams, and that can all be done from wherever. So yeah, I'm pretty lucky.
Oh, man, sounds like the dream, the absolute dream, to be in the Swiss Alps with a coffee, doing your work. Man.
Yeah, and the weather, I cannot overstate, the impact of the weather. I've been in London for far too long. I just thought that was normal. It's not normal. No, it's not normal. No.
It makes such a huge difference, doesn't it? I mean, with the clocks going forward recently and now the evenings being a bit lighter, but even the mornings as well. A couple of mornings, the first thing I've done when I've got out of bed is go to the park opposite my house and maybe just go for a walk or do a bit of skipping, something like that. And it just makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you're lucky that you have a park opposite your house because a lot of people in London don't have that. And I can imagine, yeah. But it does make such a difference, right? With it being lighter, I just have more energy. In the winters, I don't leave the house if it's, past 7 o'clock.
It's true. Yeah. And I think I always kind of wrestled with that, kind of thought, I need to stay productive, stay kind of at my same energy levels and activity levels as I do in the summer. But that wouldn't make sense, would it? Would it? Surely kind of throughout our history, we've gone in seasons, haven't we? And, summer being a very active time and then winter maybe you're a bit more cozy and hibernating. But it's like we're expected to keep going 12 months out of the year when surely that's not actually the natural rhythm or pace of human life.
No, and I've seen a lot of people take that seasonal approach to their work as well, where they're like, okay, in the winter months, I'm not reaching out to as many people. I'm not planning as many things. I'm just kind of trying to align my work more with this, new season of rest and recovery. And in the summer is when I, get my energy up, I can go and I can do this and plan everything. And I think it's important to, you can't always be on.
Yeah, true. So true. Right. I'd like to ask you about resilience. I'd love to get a neuroscientist perspective on resilience, because this is a topic that you're very much interested in, isn't it? Maybe we could start with a definition. What is a neuroscientist definition of resilience?
So the way that I would frame it is your capacity to overcome stress and adversity while maintaining a normal psychological functioning and physiological functioning. But it's interesting because I've dealt with this topic for a while, and I've tried to come up with the perfect definition. And obviously, with who I am and my background, I always look to science. And if you look in, mechanics or physics, the way that they refer to stress, it's a bit of a different definition, but it refers to an object's ability to kind of bounce back to the same shape or position after a stressor has been placed on it. So I have this is actually a great example. I have my hairband. And if you can imagine it like a hairband, if you exert stress onto the hairband, you pull it tightly, it can, return to its natural shape. And then sometimes the stress is so forceful that it will snap, or the stress is so forceful that it'll lose that elasticity. And, then you end up with a very wide hairband that, you're just going to have to throw away.
It's useless.
Yeah. And so I encourage people to think about it in that way as well. How much are you putting yourself through that, you will be able to overcome it, that it's not going to have a long-term negative effect on you where you're never going to be able to bounce back.
Mm-hmm. And there's a healthy amount of resilience, isn't there? As in, there's a healthy amount of stress that we need to put ourselves in to grow. If we went through life with no challenges, be it physical or mental, we wouldn't improve, would we? I guess if we looked after a child from a very young age and decided, I just want them to have the nicest, most calm, relaxed life ever, so I'm just going to push them around in a pushchair from right up until they're 4 or 5 or whatever, and they've never then learned how to walk and fall over and put the impact on their bones. So it's there's a certain amount of stress needed, isn't there?
Yeah, physically and psychologically, right? It helps you grow. It helps you change the way that you look at things or perceive things and understand the world. And a lot of the time you'll hear people talking about, a certain stressful event that they went through, or even a trauma. Not to say that you have to go through a traumatic event, but a lot of people come out of that with a newfound sense of self and a newfound strength and, an approach to life where the little things really don't matter, and a belief in themselves that they can overcome anything, truly anything. And that kind of resilience that, with that, you can really rule the world, basically. You see all of life's ups and downs ahead of you, and you're like, you know what, this is nothing. I can take this. And that's a really good way to approach your life, because there will be ups and there will be downs.
Yeah. And what about that balance? I feel like this is something, anytime the topic of resilience comes up, I've had psychologists on the show, resilience has come up and I've talked to them about it. Where is the balance of resilience and maybe showing a bit of grit and determination and pushing through something that's difficult to get that growth that we want, but also because you're in a hard situation, so you've got to get through it. But then where does that end? Where's the line? And when do we need to know how to stop so that we're not pushing ourselves so far that we get into burnout or cause kind of lasting damage to ourselves because we just haven't stopped?
Yeah, it's such a good question because it is hard to know, right? And a lot of what people say is you just have to keep going and keep pushing. And a lot of the time you internalize that, and then you push yourself to a point where there's no return. And there's 2 things here. So first, I like to talk about your vision for your life. And we'll talk about this later. This is part of the resilience program that I work with. When you have a clear vision of what you want in life, who you will become, what you want to achieve, then you can kind of look at everything that you're going through with that lens, and you can say, is this worth it? Is this going to get me there? Do I just need to push through this awful job so that, it's a stepping stone for the next opportunity? Or am I really just killing myself working when I don't really believe in it, it's not going to get me to where I want to go, and it's not part of my ultimate goal. I feel like that's a really great way to understand whether you're trying to be too resilient. The next thing, the reason why I think this is such a great question is because I work a lot with companies, and the way a lot of these resilience programs or mental health programs are framed to the company is work on your employees' mental health, give them this, teach them mindfulness, do yoga with them, work on their mental resilience, because you need a more resilient workforce, because then they can overcome all this stress. They can like deal with all of this like incredible like workload that you're giving them. And I don't think that is the right way to do it. That anytime that I work with a company, it's always, we are working on the resilience of the individuals, on their happiness for themselves. This is not to make them more productive. This isn't, so you can get the most out of them, because a happier person who is happy in different aspects of their lives, like, maybe I'm coming in and actually I'm helping them with their relationships or, with the things that they do in their free time. But that does translate into how they show up at work. But I would never, want to be part of that, tribe where you're saying, work on your mental resilience so you can push yourself to, no limit.
Yeah. It's your problem. We're expecting more out of you, and we want to kind of bleed you dry. And all you need to do is be more resilient. A previous guest on the podcast, Vincent Deary, who's a fatigue specialist, he talked about to me the weaponization of resilience training. I thought that was a useful phrase, wasn't it? He was saying that so many companies are adding more to workload. The expectations are getting even greater, and we just say that they just then offer resilience training, and you just need to deal with it. But then we've ticked the box.
Yes, but because everything is becoming about productivity, even meditation, and you think about the roots of meditation. Did those people ever consider that we would take this and abuse this beautiful framework to get people to be more productive and work harder for their company?
It's so true. Yeah. Like, who is it that talks about this a lot? I think it might be Chris Williamson on the Modern Wisdom podcast, talks about how you're doing all these things that you should just be doing for the joy of them, going for a walk in nature, but you're going for a walk in nature because that will mean you're more productive when you get home. So it's not actually a thing that you're enjoying. It's a productivity hack kind of thing. I'll improve my productivity if I do this. And I see it with the word well-being as well. Well-being has become a bit of it makes me mad, to be honest, on Twitter because I'm a teacher and I see a lot of teachers on Twitter. I'm connected with a lot of them. And the way they use well-being, and they say things like, I spent the afternoon with my children today. It was great for my well-being. And I get what they mean, but it's like, no, you spent the day with your children because you spent the day with your children. And that's all that matters in life. If you've got children, spending more time with your kids, it's not a way to improve your well-being. I don't know. I find it a bit odd. That's
funny because I feel a bit selfish now, because every time I hang out with my dog, which is all the time, I'm just like, she just makes me feel so good. I feel so great with her. I'm totally relaxed. Like, she brings me into the moment. And I mean, yeah. And now I feel like I'm taking advantage of her. But I spend time with her, not, so that I can work harder later. It's just because there are just so many benefits of spending time with her. And it's just amazing. Yeah. It's so much fun.
The productivity product that we all need in our life is a dog. I guess.
Yeah.
That'll boost our productivity 50%.
I'm surprised that, allowing like pets in the workplace hasn't taken off more than what I've seen. I mean, they love to, and this is again, they love to bring like, oh, we've got some dogs for you to play with to reduce stress as like an initiative, right? Have you seen that? I had that at my university where there was like once a month you could go in and pet puppies.
Which, it has an effect, doesn't it? At my school, we've got a therapy dog that comes in on a Friday. He works with certain children, but yeah, like, is it just a plaster on a wound rather than actually getting to the root cause of things?
And why can't you just play dogs because it's fun and like,
Yeah. Oh, true. Oof. Right. You mentioned that you've got a program to help people improve their resilience. Is that the right word? Do we say boost resilience, improve resilience?
Yeah, I hear a lot of people saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
boost your resilience. I feel like sometimes that's kind of like a catchy way to say it.
Yeah, because I've heard some people say you boost your immune system, and then some people have come back saying that you can't boost your immune system. But I don't know. We'll go with boost.
The reason why I frame it like that, because there's a lot of stuff that you see where people are like, increase this by 99%, or like, boost your resilience by like 12% with this one thing in 2 minutes, and as a scientist, my eyes roll to the back
head in the hands.
Like, please. But I say it because a lot of the time when you work on resilience, or when you have corporate training for wellness, mental health, all of these things, it's just a one-off, really. You're not really going to make any lasting changes in 1 hour of yoga. Maybe in the moment, yes, and for the few hours afterwards. But any sort of change in the brain and the body, that needs to be happening repeatedly over time, right? That's what we know with neuroplasticity. The other thing is that it's never measured, right? You're never measuring like, what's your mental health like before yoga, and like, what's it afterwards? Or, but with this resilience program, with the training that I do, I look at your score for resilience, and this is based on how we look at resilience in the neuroscientific literature. And then afterwards, and it's always like a mandatory with corporate minimum 5 sessions, over the course of 5 weeks at least, because I want you to encourage change over time. And then you can look at how your scores have improved. And I think that's really important, because I wouldn't feel comfortable saying like, hey, this is going to boost your mental resilience if there was no way of looking at it that way, if there was no way of measuring it. So yeah, we have a lot of different ways in the neuroscientific literature in which we measure mental resilience, and that's different from physical resilience, although physical resilience has a small part in mental resilience. And I basically just scour the literature and find what I think works best. And so at the moment, there's one methodology that I use. That's not to say that it won't change if something better comes up. But this one is very well researched, and it outlines 6 key areas of mental resilience. And those are the areas that we then look at from start to finish.
So what are the 6 areas?
So the first one is vision. And I've already spoken about this a lot. This is like the vision that you have for your life. What do you want to achieve? Your future self. How does your future look? All of those things. You have composure. So this is your ability to remain calm if you're going through something quite stressful. Reasoning, self-explanatory, reasoning abilities. We have health is a part of it. And so what you look at in health is your nutrition, your exercise. And I'm not a nutritionist or personal trainer, so I'm not going to give you any plans. But what I look at with you is your relationship to food, and your relationship to exercise, and how fit you are. And again, this relates to vision as well, because if you have a vision for your life, this can help you figure out what change needs to happen in those areas. And I also have people that you can work with, nutritionists and fitness experts, if you wanted to kind of like take it a little bit further. Then we have collaboration, and collaboration is all about your relationships. So having a support network, having people that you can rely on. An area here that I also look at, which some people opt not to do this, but I think it's very important. Also looking at the relationships in your life that you need to leave behind. And that's difficult, and that's quite challenging for some people, because a lot of the time it's relationships that you've had in your life for a long time, and they're just people who are there because they've been there for years. But that's a key aspect, because the people around you are going to determine your level of success and your level of happiness, and it's just really important. And then the last area is tenacity. And this is just your ability to keep going, right? So when things get tough, like how are you going to like keep going? And this is what we were talking about as well, is how do I know when to keep going and when it's actually better for me and better for my mental resilience, my mental well-being, to let go. So those are the 6 areas that we look at, and it always starts with the vision. And vision, the way that we look at that, there's so many techniques that we can use, but a huge one there is visualization.
Interesting. Because as you go through them, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty good on that. And then that one, maybe not so much.
So where would you, like, from what I've said, is there anything that stood out to you? Like, yes, doing really well here, not so sure about these ones.
Well, I think the physical side of things, the health side of things, that's something I've devoted a lot of time to. And I think I'm, good with that. And the tenacity, I think I am quite a tenacious person, and I will stick to something and get through it. Yeah. But then I think the thing about relationships, the people that you've got around you, I think that's an interesting thing that I could be looking at, and the vision as well. I kind of feel like I do have an idea of who I want to become and where I'm going, but maybe I don't like conceptualize it very well, and maybe I don't get it written down, and I don't really think, well, what will that look like in a month and 6 months and in a year? It's kind of like I just tread water and keep moving forward, but actually maybe if I put things in place, my growth could be twice as quick. But then is that really the way I want to live my life? Like thinking, oh, actually I could be improving twice as fast.
Yeah, but maybe the vision is that you're not just, again, being productive and doing things all the time. Maybe part of the vision is like, I have time to relax. I have time to do this. I choose how I spend my days, right? And
I definitely get to do that. Yeah. I'm very lucky. So yeah, no kids, living alone, work 4 days a week. So, can't complain too much. I think it's interesting. Yeah. Not quite the Swiss, being in Swiss cafes, but still it's pretty good. I think it's interesting. A whole aspect is relationships that you need to leave behind. And I mean, how often do people, you start to feel it inside you, don't you, when you maybe have got that vision and you know the direction that you want to go in and you know that you want to make changes, but the people around you, they're not kind of aligned with that. Maybe you were surrounded by people that they're your friends because you'd always be going to the bars and drinking with them or getting takeaways with them or something, and you have got a different idea of how you want to live your life. But like that uncomfortable feeling that you've got to start letting go and spending less or even no time with these people. And then the fact that people have expectations of you, don't you? And so if you start to talk about how you want to grow and you want to change, and they say, well, this isn't you, you, Sam. You didn't used to be like this. Who do you think you are behaving like this now?
Yeah. They won't be comfortable. They'll see they're used to you, the way that you are, and the habits that you have and the things that you do and the way that you hang out, and they're going to see change and they're going to be resistant to it, because we are resistant to change in many ways.
Yeah. And is it also then they have to look at themselves as well and go, oh, yeah, I'm not changing.
Right? This person is actually doing what they said they're going to do. I haven't done that.
Right. Interesting. How did you get into this position of being so self-reflective? And I don't know, like, and do you do this as well? Have you thought about the people? Have you curated a group around you that is helping you with your goals?
I think constantly in my life, like, there have been these changes. And if we're talking specifically about the relationships that I have around me, I can definitely see, and I think a lot of people can, the progression of your intimate relationships, as a reflection of maybe the self-worth that you had, or like what you think that you deserved. Because you do always switch it up a little bit. I mean, some people always stay the same with the same partners that target like the same wounds and all of that. But I mean, I've also stopped seeing it as a negative. When you cut ties with someone, a lot of people are like, that's really tough. They're going to take that really negatively. It's like, or it's I think that I'm better than them now because I have this vision for my life and they don't align. It's not like that. Like, it doesn't have to be the same way that a lot of intimate relationships, it's just, you're similar for this part of your life, and then you change a little bit and you're just going in different directions. It doesn't all have to be so deep, really, if you think about it. And it's funny because I don't, I work on this a lot more with like one-to-one training in the corporate situation. what we understand under the umbrella, like collaboration. Yes, it's the people around you, but we look more at like teams and who do I work with and am I a team player, right? So like there's different levels of it, because I'm not going to go to a corporate and tell you to leave your boyfriend.
The boyfriend might not be very happy. Oof. Okay, so there are two kind of approaches that I know that you work around and offer tools around. You mentioned visualization and journaling is another one. Is that right?
Yeah, journaling is great. Yeah.
So I'd like to hear more about those, because I think those are two aspects out of the work that I've seen that you do that I am interested in. So purely from a selfish point of view, I want to hear more from you about those two things. I feel like visualization is something, if I've got a physical challenge or something coming up, I do try to employ that. I used to do decathlon, and so had a little bit of training around that. And if I was doing the javelin, visualizing where I want it to go, visualizing a race, whatever. And so I still try and do that now when I've got something coming up, like imagine how I'm going to go through each stage of a race and imagine myself crossing the finish line, all that good stuff. I know I'm not a pro athlete or anything, but still, I think it helps. And then the other thing is, no, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying it's great how that's so integrated into the sports nowadays. It's just, you know, it's an expectation, and that's just like the starting point of everything. I can't wait to get into everything else, but continue, please.
Yeah, and it's accepted, whereas maybe how many years ago it would have been seen what you're imagining, the goal that you want to, like, that's ridiculous. But yeah, it does seem to be more accepted. But then I guess part of it is I do it in that the physical challenge side of it, but maybe not so much in the professional, personal side of my life. So I'll be interested to hear more about that. And then journaling is something that I've heard a lot about and wanted to try, but never really got into it. So as I said, those are the two aspects I'd like to hear more about. So should we start with visualization and maybe the research around that, and how is that improving resilience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you already know, and I think most people are familiar with its applications in sports and competitive things, or Formula One drivers, for example. You see them visualizing their race and like they're holding the steering wheel. They're like mentally preparing. It is really just like a mental rehearsal. But there are so many other applications in it with things like this, and with journaling as well. It's funny because people are like, okay, well, what are the direct benefits of that? And there are just so many. It can help you with muscle growth, with your strength. It can help you with stress reduction. It can help you with sense of self. It can help you with like levels of happiness, creativity, trust, your ability to trust somebody else. You can build that. You can increase that just through doing these techniques. So it really covers all aspects. So that's why I love these techniques so much, because if you have anything that you would like to work on, there's probably a way that you can work on it with one of these techniques and tailor it to your needs, and you will see, and it will have been researched that this can help you. So when I'm talking about, one of the things that I think is incredible is like your strength. People just think, I've been going to the gym for 10 years. This is how much I can lift. And now you have experiments with regular gym goers who are in two conditions. One condition, they're visualizing, so mentally rehearsing the lifts that they do. So that could be bench press, back squat, whatever it is, a clean. And then you have the other ones who've also been going to the gym, do the same exercises, but they're not visualizing it or mentally rehearsing. And in the condition where you're actually visualizing yourself doing it at the same time, you can increase your strength or how much you're able to lift. In one of the journals, it was like 10 to 15 pounds extra just by also visualizing at the same time. So, a lot of the time when you're in the gym, getting those few extra pounds is like, that's a few weeks progression, right?
At least, yeah.
And you can do that in a sitting, like in one sitting, just by mentally rehearsing what you're doing, focusing on that like mind-muscle connection. So it feels quite like magic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've heard similar things. People, I think basketball players, there have been studies into that, haven't they? They've just been visualizing their 3-point, what is it? Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I'm not a basketball fan. The 3-point outside the key, whatever it is, and just visualizing it. And they've seen an improvement in their accuracy just by visualizing compared to the group that didn't do that. And so it's interesting. But what about, you mentioned other areas of your life. So aside from the sporting world, what does that visualization look like? If we're talking strength, if we're talking trust, or if we're talking stress reduction, how might one go about that?
So one of the main areas where I use visualization is in this first component, which is your vision. And what we'll do there, we have different types of visualizations. And the main one is like a future self visualization. So you are visualizing yourself, and it could be 5, 10, 15 years in the future. And you really connect with what you look like, where you are, what are your surroundings. It could be personal life, or it could be like career wise. You could be visualizing yourself in your ideal office. What does your office look like? Do you have a big corner room, with the floor to ceiling windows? I don't know. It could be different for everyone. For me, it could be, sitting at a cafe and working from anywhere in the world. So with that, you can really connect to what it is that you want for yourself in life. And in doing that, you're already connecting with this. You're already knowing that it's possible. So your brain has already seen it. Same receptors as if you're actually seeing it in real life are being activated in your occipital lobe. So at the back of your brain, it's quite a big section of your brain. It's like 20% of your total brain. And just by imagining it, the same circuitry is being activated as if you were really seeing it. So it makes it, first of all, possible. So it lessens the barrier between, what's possible and what's not, which helps with motivation. And it helps with, all that, like the goal setting and the reward systems. So that gives you a bit of excitement. That gets your endorphins going, right? And then just by engaging in the practice where you're calm, where you're focused on something, that has a naturally calming effect for you. So your heart rate goes down, same as like when you're meditating. So that's one of the applications. And then if you wanted to build trust, so if, let's say, we're now working on the aspect of collaboration, so your relationships, and you realize that actually you're the one who's not really trusting of other people in your life, and you have an issue there which allows you which keeps you from a distance, and which doesn't allow you to get close to somebody else. So then we can say like, okay, well, maybe we need to work on our ability to trust people. And so you can do a visualization where you are bringing to mind somebody that somebody that you'd like to know more, or it could be a stranger, or it could be, somebody that you've walked past at the coffee shop that day. You don't know them, but you've walked past them, you remember their face, and you can bring them to mind, and you can share some thoughts with them. You can wish them health, you can wish them happiness, you can imagine yourself telling them something about your day or about yourself personally, and you can visualize them in front of you accepting and receiving what it is that you have to say. And you see how, their face changes. Maybe they have a smile on their face after you've said something nice. Maybe they give you a hug. Maybe they, say thank you. Or maybe they say like, this has, brought this has made my day, or what you've said to me has meant so much to me. And in just imagining those interactions, you're also getting all of the benefits of if those interactions were actually happening. So you have, again, those like endorphins and those feelings and that feeling of warmth and trust for someone. And over time, again, this isn't going to just happen in one session, but over time, you can build your trust. And it's not just about, what you're saying to them and what you want to receive back from them and imagining that as if it were true. It's also just very selflessly giving somebody else, a stranger, maybe even some kind wishes, or some kindness, or giving them a compliment, or something that doesn't benefit you in any way. Of course it benefits you because like you get all the good feelings from it. But doing that and expressing gratitude for another person can, and we've seen this in studies, make you more altruistic, make you more trusting, can make you more grateful as a person, happier as a person. So there are really so many different applications to that. And visualization, I think, is a really great way to do it. Of course, you can do gratitude journaling. You can do this all by like writing things down. You can do this in a meditation where you're not visualizing, but because visualization activates such a big part of your brain, and because you're really getting in tune with all of the other senses. So you're like imagining, what do they smell like, or what does it look like? What is the quality of the light in this moment? You're making that real, and that just supercharges those effects. So I think visualization is really one of the best techniques ever.
Yeah. It's kind of spiritual, isn't it? Are we seeing now like this merging of research and science that's catching up to what was being said 2,000 years ago about the way we can improve our life and feel calmer and more connected? Is it something you're interested in as well? Are you seeing that divergence?
It does feel so spiritual, right? Like when you talk about it, and when you're doing it, right? It's also for the people who are not spiritual at all. But I feel like the more you do it, the more you might be like a little bit more inclined to just, because it's not magic, right? It's science, what's happening, but it just feels like magic sometimes because you're not aware of all the intricate processes that are going on. But yeah, I'm very interested in the intersection of neuroscience and religion and spirituality and all of those things. There's a field called neurotheology, which I've been interested in since I was little. This was like one of my motivations for, doing what I do, because my mother was very religious. She still is. And I was not religious at all. And so I was always trying to understand her. But yeah, I think science is very much catching up with a lot of generational wisdom. Yeah. And this is also something that I talk about quite a lot, which I think is it's a shame, because science, or modern science, the way that we see it, is very like whitewashed, right? It's these white men in lab coats determining what's true and what's not true. And if it hasn't been proven by a rigorous science, then it's not true. And if these people over here are like singing hymns and doing whatever, like that does not cross over here. Obviously now it is, but it's a shame that we in the Western world have to wait for someone to verify something in the lab, which, first of all, science isn't fact, right? Like it's always changing and evolving. We're limited by our study designs and like our knowledge in the first place. So yeah, I think there's a huge overlap, and understanding the science more actually makes me trust and believe and honor the old wisdom a lot more without having to know, what the science says about it.
Yeah, and how often do we do something that feels really good for us, but then we say, but there's no studies proving this is the case, so maybe I'll just leave it. Or there's something that a study comes out saying this is not good for you, so I'm going to stop it even though I'm feeling good. I mean, before we clicked record, we were talking about caffeine, weren't we? And delaying caffeine, and that's been all kind of come out as actually that's nonsense. And so all these people that were feeling really guilty about waking up and enjoying their cup of coffee in the morning, it's like, oh man, but it felt good for you, so...
But that's the thing also with, what we were talking about before, and like Huberman and the optimizers, is that...
Optimizers, yeah.
The optimizers, you have to, like, you don't have to optimize every second of your life. If it gives you a sense of control, and I feel like for a lot of people, that's what it is. They just want to know that they're doing the right thing to get optimal results because that allows them to feel in control of their life. Okay, but like for everybody else, you don't have to listen to all of that. No, you don't have to wake up and get sunlight and meditate and do this and wait for your coffee and, do whatever makes you happy. If that's going to if that's going to make you a better person, then please go for it, because we need people to be happy and, interested in like smiling at you on the tube, right?
Yeah.
So if your routine, because you're optimizing it, is making you miserable and making you not smile at people on the tube, then, do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I've just got a huge grin on my face, people that are just listening and can't see, because it just speaks so much to me what you're saying. And I feel like I walk this tightrope all the time. Like I really got into the Optimizers podcast and I loved it. And like you said, when someone says something and it like you just hit the nail on the head, it was like, right, I couldn't quite put my thumb on it, but that's what it is. And I liked it because it gave me that sense of control and discipline. And I did feel better when I did these certain things. But then it gets to the stage where, recently I can wake up and I'm like, oh, shall I go outside? Shall I have my coffee now, or shall I have a yerba mate? And shall I have my breakfast now, or do I delay it for an hour? Shall I fast a little bit longer? And it's like, oh man, this is not a way to live life, is it? It's not a way to live life. Constantly thinking, optimize, just like you said. And then the other thing is, it's kind of like we're all trying to be professional athletes and comparing ourselves to these people that are working at the top of their game, and they've really got to try and increase things by that 1%. I think sometimes we need to be a bit more humble. Sam, you're just a primary school teacher. Get over yourself. Like, I don't need to worry about the beetroot powder and the creatine and the protein shakes.
It's because we're exposed. Like, there are athletes, professional athletes on Instagram. There's like models on Instagram. There's like everyone is on Instagram in their field. Like, everyone is creating this personal brand, and then you as an individual, and maybe you are an expert in your niche, but you also have the pressure to like be a professional athlete and like a professional this and a model here and like
a cook, a Michelin star chef,
right? Like everything. And it's not realistic. And I feel like with the optimization, I also love to optimize my life, but I do it because like it allows me not to have to think for myself in a lot of the times. This is especially before I turned to mindfulness the way that I do now, because when you're mindful, you're in tune with your body and you know what's right for you. So I can wake up and I'm not like, which one of these 5 things should I do to optimize my life right now? It's like, and do I have time to do all of these things? It's like, what do I feel like doing, and how, what is going to be good for me? Okay, maybe I need to go for a walk first, and then I'll come back, and then I'll, have a coffee if I want a coffee. And that's a nice way of living. And it doesn't have to be slow life, right? People mistake mindfulness for like this slow life and everybody's chilled, but it's just more of like an at peace and an inner knowing. And I think that inner knowing, as we know from, ancient wisdom, is gold, and that is your truth. So there's a lot to be said for that. But on the other side of things, like if I'd listen to podcasts or watch these reels where they're like, you should never blend a banana with berries in your smoothie. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm never going to do it again. Like, I didn't even listen to what was being said, but I'm like, it's fine, because, it's not like I'm really like, oh, I really need to have my banana and smoothie and berries in my smoothie. And so I'll just do something else. If somebody is telling me like, I'm, just fine. And then, tell me to like go outside and in the sunshine, I'm like, cool, I'll just do that. But I also realized a little bit, it was kind of like a cop out for me to think for myself or like to do my own research into things. So it's a balance. I still optimize a lot of aspects of my life, but I also lean into like the mindfulness of it.
Yeah. Do you have a morning routine? Can we hear the neuroscientist morning routine?
It changes depending on where I am. And that's why this year has been quite tough, because I've been in different places.
Yeah.
If you listen to my morning routine from when I was in Thailand, you would think that I was a maniac.
We've got to hear it now.
And then obviously my morning routine now, we were talking about this. I've been drinking so much coffee and I hadn't had coffee for a year. So, my morning routine over here in Switzerland is like a little bit different from what it's been for the past year. So it changes. But in Thailand, I was obviously different time zone. So I would wake up early. Everybody in England was still sleeping. And that was wonderful, because I can like do whatever I want to do. Nobody's bothering me. I don't have any messages on my phone. Like, I have hours and hours and hours before anybody wants something from me. I would wake up early in the morning. I would have a PT session. Then I would go have breakfast. Then I would have another workout session. Then I would have a protein shake, and then I would have another workout session.
What? 3 workouts?
Wait, no, please. This is, and I'm not recommending this for anyone, because if you did that in your normal life, people would, they think that you have a problem. But I was at a fitness camp, so
okay.
But I was there for 6 weeks, and people were. There were people doing as many as 5 workouts a day, which that's definitely too much. But yeah, you can kind of like pace them so you're not like really stressing your body too much. My morning sessions were weight sessions, and the rest was like a little bit of cardio or like mix or I can never say it, like calisthenics.
Calisthenics, yeah.
It's kind of whatever. So that was my morning routine, and then I would sit at my laptop, and then like my work would start. So I felt incredible. And then I came back to Switzerland, and I'm like, I can only work out once a day. And I felt like a bit of a failure for, a few days, because I was like,
shocking.
I'm not doing
once
enough.
A day.
I'm not doing enough. But my morning routine now is like a lot calmer. And I'll wake up. I'll have my coffee first thing in the morning. Shock. Yeah, and this is my coffee I was telling you about, with cold brew, lime, and honey. Please try it; it's amazing.
Lime or lemon? Lime.
Lime. I've had it with lemons as well, because I ran out of limes because I was drinking so much coffee. I'd have like 2 coffees a day, and then I would go to the gym, and then I start working. Okay. So nothing crazy, and it really changes depending on where I am, because obviously my mornings here. I would wake up, it was still a little bit dark outside. It was a bit colder. The sun might be shining, but it's windy. And that really affects me. And in Thailand, I wake up, the sun is already glaring. It's warm. The music's blaring from the gym next door. So I'm like, right, let's go. It depends. And I feel like you need to just allow yourself to, again, go with these seasons of life.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. I'm curious to know about your morning routine as a optimizer.
What does it involve? Usually the first thing I do is clean my kitchen. It's a bit of a weird one, but I'll wake up, and I feel like that is a way for me to kind of gradually get out of my sleepiness. And then, it's more, so not as abrupt as doing something straight away. So I'll do that, and then maybe I'll try and meditate or do some breath work or something for 3 minutes. If I'm not going to school, then I might get outside as soon as I can. But when I'm going to school, I walk to work. So I'm very lucky in that, every time, that's just part of my morning, that I'll have 15 minutes outside, which is great. What have I, more recently, I have been waking up and just getting on yerba mate quite quickly. So even after just kind of half an hour, and it definitely gives me a kick in the morning, but then sometimes I wonder whether it's a little bit too much. So I don't know. It is changing all the time. It depends on the day. Sometimes I'll try and have decaf coffee for a while and not have the first caffeinated drink for a while. Sometimes I'll delay breakfast for quite a while. So I might have not eaten for 12, 13, 14 hours. And I find that does make me feel good, actually. If I don't have breakfast straight away and I wait for a little bit, I find I think a bit more clearly. Just little things like that I just try and do. But like we were saying, I never anymore wake up and go, I'm just going to put Friends on or something. I'm just going to lie on the sofa as soon as I wake up. And like, it's a Sunday morning, and I'm telling myself all the things that I need to get done before I can start my day. And why don't I just lie on the sofa and be lazy? I can't do it.
Yeah. And what at your height of optimization did your morning routine look like?
So I guess that, but a bit more extended. So it might have been wake up, meditate for 10 minutes, read a book for 20 minutes, then start drinking some coffee or something, maybe do a bit of writing out my day and what some goals that I need to get done, and like schedule out the day and what I'm going to do. So I guess that doesn't sound too crazy when I say it like that, does it?
I mean, it's a lot of things to pack into a morning, for sure. Like tell that to somebody.
Tell your mum or dad, yeah.
Yeah, but also I'm curious because we spoke about obviously all the research that's coming out now with the with caffeine and delaying your caffeine intake. Has that changed how you consume caffeine? Because for me, as you can tell, I wasn't drinking caffeine for a year. The information's come out, and I'm drinking two two coffees in the morning.
Yeah. So now I don't mind drinking some yerba mate within 15 minutes, half an hour of waking up, or having a strong coffee. But then I think when originally I found out about it, it did kind of make sense to me. But I don't know whether that was just because the earlier I started drinking caffeine, then maybe I would just have more caffeine. And so by the afternoon I might crash and maybe it would affect my sleep. But maybe it wasn't when I was having it, maybe it would just meant that I'd end up having 4 caffeinated drinks instead of just 2. So when I delay it or have a decaf coffee, then I've just naturally had less throughout the day. I don't know.
I think that makes sense because I've noticed that as well. If I have
really?
a coffee in the morning, a lot of people, right, then continue drinking coffee throughout the day. Yeah. Whereas if you delay it, then you have you've delayed it, and then you have this period like after 2:00 you can't drink coffee, so you just have a very short window.
Yeah, and I've still stuck to that, and I feel like that is, from lots of different people I hear that that's still the case. Try and finish by 12, 2, whatever it is. So we'll stick with that until we get told wrong. But then how many people, like parents or maybe that older generation that are having a coffee at 9:00 and they just say it's fine, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. We said we were going to talk about journaling, didn't we?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that? Have we got time?
Yeah, I can do that pretty quickly because journaling is kind of, it's the same principle, right? So a lot of the things that I've spoken about that you can do with visualization, you can do the same in writing format journaling. So you can do gratitude journaling. You can journal about like your day or your life or your experience to kind of unpick some of the things that are going on in your head and like improve your emotional intelligence in that way, and to just understand yourself better. You can journal about the scene outside. So like mindfulness journaling definitely reduces your stress levels and just makes you more like aware and appreciative. And you can journal again in that same way to build trust with somebody. The same thing that you would do in this visualization, you just do it in writing format. Like maybe you write a letter to somebody that you want to express something to. And yeah, again, like journaling is just such a beautiful practice as well. Not only are you taking time out of your day to dedicate to yourself or to somebody else or to just do something nice, but especially if you focus on like a gratitude journaling, and I think this is what most people do, definitely from what I've seen, if people are journaling, it's in some way positive, right? And that definitely makes you more of a grateful person. It makes you more altruistic as well. So there's brain studies that have showed that if you have 2 conditions, one, you're just journaling about your day. That's the journal prompt is like, oh, things happen during the day. Describe one of those things. The other condition was a journaling prompt. So the prompt might have been, things happen every day that change the way that you see life, or that can make you more grateful for someone or something. Reflect on one of those things and journal about it. So just the prompt is just shifting you to like journal in a more like gratitude focused way. And between those 2 conditions, the people who did gratitude journaling over a period of time, the same brain regions were activated as when you're doing something altruistic, like giving money to a charity, or like, they also felt more comfortable. There were conditions where they would have to like give a certain amount of fake money to a person or a charity or whatever. They felt more comfortable with that. They felt happier with that. They felt a lot more reward from that. So they became more altruistic. They also long-term tended to see things in more of a grateful way. So it's just this positive feedback cycle, right? If you have things that you're looking out for to be grateful for, you're starting to slowly rewire your brain to look out for more things to be grateful for. So it really just shifts your mindset in that way. I think of so many days when I was younger, and I would just think of, all the worst possible things. And a lot of people do that, right? You ruminate. And ruminating is like visualizing in the negative, basically. And so just switching that to the positive, either by writing things down or by actively visualizing or meditating, you can shift the way that you see things. So I think a lot of people feel like they are stuck with the brain that they have, and they feel like, I'm just a pessimistic person, right? Or bad things always happen to me. It's because you're looking out for the bad things for the most part, right? Obviously, there's always circumstances and there are always exceptions, but you can, even if you are somebody who is experiencing a lot of pain and maybe health issues and relationship difficulties, or your financial situation has changed, like you can always find something to be grateful for. And it might be the smallest thing. It might be like, yes, I can have coffee in the mornings again because Huberman's been debunked, right? It can be that small, and you can just start to build, and it'll build from there. And over time, you'll just see that you wake up and all of a sudden, like, the world is just such a beautiful place, and there are so many things to be grateful for.
So if someone wanted to get started doing this, are there set journal prompts that you would recommend, or even just one? Like, if I've got a blank notebook that I've kept telling myself I'm going to start journaling in the morning or at night, but I guess I'm just not sure where to get started, because so many things, if you type in journaling on the internet and you get all these responses, all these different questions.
There are so many prompts, and that's why, depending on what we're looking at, if we're working, like if I'm working one-on-one with somebody, I will curate things for them and drip feed that to them so that they're not like overwhelmed with like a bunch of things. But I would say, for anybody out there, the easiest way to get started, and this is how I got started, is just to write down 3 things that you're grateful for every single day, either when you wake up or when you go to bed. And you can start by saying them out loud if if you're averse to journaling, which I know a lot of people are, because it's like just that extra bit of effort, to write things down. Start by just saying it out loud. I say this to my partner every night. We go to bed and we're like, okay, what are 3 things that you're grateful for? And that's how we end the evening. That can also influence your sleep, by the way. Like, that can allow you to sleep, to fall asleep better, because it does help calm you down. But if you're into journaling, then just start with that. It's very, very simple. And another distinction that I would make, if you're serious about journaling, it probably affects you a little bit more, is that writing it out, pen to paper or pencil to paper or whatever, digital notepad, is a lot more effective than typing it out on a computer. And so that's because when you're engaging your hand to write, you're increasing connectivity between certain brain areas. And it helps you remember what you're saying more. So especially if you're journaling about your day or an experience or something that you want to be grateful for, it's very good if you can actually recall that and remember it, so that it's always front of mind, so that you have like this grateful attitude. And yeah, it's also very effective and something to consider if you have children and you're wanting to get them into some really positive habits like gratitude journaling. Writing is really key there, because it can help you with like your ability to read and write. And it's really interesting. So in neuroscience, we have this thing with, when you're trying to understand language, the letters D and B, for example, are very similar. They're just mirror opposites. And a lot of the time, kids can kind of mess that up, and even adults, right? And we have things with dyslexia and whatever. And a lot of the time, it's just with those little strange little letters like that get confused. And the more that you write, the more that you're working on that ability to refine that, and it will help you. Like if you have concerns, if your child is having difficulties reading and writing, or has dyslexia, then try and focus on actively writing.
Yeah. I wonder if that's something that all schools could be doing, a gratitude journal. We do morning work, the kids come in and as they're filtering in, they come down, they sit down, they've maybe got a maths question to answer or an English problem or something, and they're straight away trying to solve something. But I wonder how different the day would look if they came in and they thought about what they're grateful for that day.
I mean, there are a lot of neuroscientists who are actively pushing for reform in schools with regards to writing. And especially in the States, this is kind of becoming quite an issue. The literacy rates have been going down, and the way that reading and writing is being taught is not really in line with what researchers understand to help that. So you're nodding. I presume that you know about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah. And then the thing about actual pen to paper rather than typing, I've heard that. I've also heard that reading on a screen compared to reading an actual physical book, there's a difference there. And that's interesting as well, isn't it? But it also validates the fact that I like to have an actual proper book, and I don't really like Kindles, but I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. And further to your point, I think so much would change if we went into schools and we just told them, or started the day with some sort of gratitude exercise.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right. You've heard it here first. There are teachers that listen to the show. So come on, guys. Who's going to do it? Who's going to introduce gratitude journals to their school? Right. Anne-Sophie, thank you so much for your time today. I always get a little, what is it, the word? I don't know, emotional, grateful, whatever it is, when someone takes the time to come onto the show and share as much as you have. And it's always nice to talk to someone that I feel like I could just be chatting to you, having a coffee somewhere in a cafe, and we would be talking about the exact same thing. It just so happens that we've pressed record and we've got mics in front of us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm also very grateful for obviously the opportunity and for the conversation, for your time, and the insightful conversation that we've had. It does really feel like we could just be chatting about this anywhere. So that's very special.
You'll have to come back on the show because there's lots we haven't talked about. What am I going to say? Controversies, etc. that I want to ask you about, but maybe we'll save it for another time. I do finish every episode with 3 more quick-fire questions that I ask the same questions to every guest. Are you ready for them?
Yes.
Up for it? Nice one. So the first one is, what's one lesson you wish you'd have been taught when you were a child?
I'm going to say visualizing. Do I have time to elaborate, or is it just quick fire?
No, you can elaborate a little.
Okay, I would say visualizing, and for the reasons that I mentioned, I used to see things in a very negative way. I used to, have a lot of issues with my mental health and just self-worth and a lot of those things. And I wish I would have known that I could visualize the life that I wanted to have, because I feel like it would have helped me a lot with goal setting, with looking out for things to be grateful for. And it's the reason why I also say this is because usually my answer would be setting boundaries and saying no. I feel like especially for young women, that's important. And I really wish that I would have learned that at a younger age. I think we're like educated to be complacent and to be kind and, to be polite. And I feel like the reason why I chose visualization over that is because if I had a vision of the person that I wanted to be, I think those things would have fallen in there naturally. I might have been pushed into a corner in a situation that I didn't want, and I would have, had this vision of, this is the person that I strive to be, and would they put up with this? No. So that's my long-winded answer.
Next question. Is there a habit that you've introduced to your life, perhaps recently, and it's helping you feel happier, healthier?
Oh, sorry. I feel like I'm on the spot. I would say just my approach to eating. Yeah. So just eating more in tune with like being more mindful about what I eat. So sitting down, not having like the television on, not trying to do work while I'm eating, and just having that as a kind of like a sacred time for myself. I feel like that's been really wonderful.
And last one, if you could give everyone in the world one book, which book would you give them?
That's so hard. That's so hard because also recently I'm really into novels. But But if I had to give a book to everyone in the world, then can I say the dictionary?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the best one.
Oh, okay. What, just to improve people's language?
Just like, because if everybody in the world got the dictionary, they could increase their vocabulary. They could like learn how to communicate better, understand the true meaning of words, be very selective and decisive about the words that they choose. And then I think that would also, not alienate people who, or in countries where the literacy rate is like maybe a bit lower, right? I'm not going to give them, I don't know, complicated scientific book to read. And instead they can self-learn and work their way through the dictionary.
There you go. Good answer. Like that. Sometimes we've had repeated books. People say the same book, recommend the same one.
What would be a book that's come up quite a lot?
What's come up a lot? I feel like Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. I feel like that's come up more than once.
Yeah.
I think I'm looking at it now opposite me. What's it called again? The Four Agreements. That's it. Do you know that one? I think that's come up more than once. I think there are others, but those are the two that come to mind. But never the dictionary.
There you go.
There you go.
I hope teachers will like that.
For sure. If people want to connect with you and find out more about what you're doing, where can they do that?
LinkedIn would probably be the best place. So I don't know if you link that in your show notes, but my name is Anne-Sophie Fluri. Yeah, perfect. Or you can find it in the show notes, or through my website. If there's anyone wanting to do a workshop together, I do it for corporate, for schools, one-on-one, and you can find out more information on my website, which is annesophie.uk. So it's it'll be in the show notes.
It will. The link will be there.
Perfect.
The link will be there. Thank you so much again. Really appreciate your time. And I'm really looking forward. I'm just so happy that we connected on LinkedIn, and then all the posts that I see that you're putting out there are just, it's another person that the things that you share really resonate, and can just tell that they are helping a lot of people. So yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. I really hope you found my conversation with Anne-Sophie insightful. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with friends, family, and colleagues who you think would find it interesting too. And you can also support the podcast by following and rating the show on whichever app you're listening on. Thanks again, and I look forward to bringing you another episode soon.